All right, today we're tackling a big one, ISO 9001. Now, you might know it as the world's most recognized standard for quality management, but it's way more than just a fancy certificate to hang on the wall. Think of it more like a blueprint for building excellence right into the very DNA of a company. So let's break down how it actually works.
This is a question that every business faces, whether you're a tiny startup or a giant corporation. How do you make sure that every single product you make or every service you provide is consistently good? I mean, every single time. How do you build that rock-solid trust with your customers?
Well, the answer, according to ISO, is something called a quality management system, or QMS for short. And I want you to pay attention to the wording here, because it's pulled straight from the standard. It says a QMS is a strategic decision. That's huge. This isn't just some checklist or a boring technical job. It's a conscious, high-level choice a company makes to improve its entire performance. It's about deciding to build a better business from the ground up.
Okay, so you make this big strategic decision. What's the payoff? Well, it really boils down to four main goals. First, you get consistency. You actually deliver what you say you're going to deliver, time and time again. Second, you start actively looking for ways to make your customers happier. Third, and this is a big one, you stop just reacting to problems. You get ahead of them by tackling risks. But you also learn to spot and grab opportunities. And last but not least, you can prove to everyone that your commitment to quality isn't just talk. It's backed by a real, solid system.
All right, so to build a system like this, you need some ground rules, right? A guide. Let's think of these next principles as your compass, the thing that makes sure you're always heading in the right direction on this whole quality journey.
And it's simpler than you might think. The whole standard, the entire framework, is built on just 7 core principles.
So here they are. These 7 ideas really are the whole philosophy behind ISO 9001. It all kicks off with focusing on the customer, obviously. Then you need strong leadership to steer the ship. Of course, none of it works unless you get everyone involved, the engagement of people. It's also about seeing your work not as separate tasks, but as a connected process. You've got to be constantly improving, making decisions based on actual data, evidence, not just guesswork. And finally, managing your relationships with suppliers and partners. And listen, these aren't just corporate buzzwords. They are truly the foundation for everything else.
Okay, so if those principles are our compass, what's the map? Well, the operational core of ISO 9001 is this amazing, dynamic cycle that shows you exactly what to do. It's the engine that keeps you moving forward.
But before we get to the map, we have to grasp one key idea, the process approach. This is a game changer. Instead of thinking about your company as a bunch of separate departments that don't talk to each other, silos, ISO 9001 forces you to see it as one big interconnected system. Every little thing you do is a process. It takes something in, adds value to it, and produces something out. The real secret to getting better is understanding and managing how all these little processes work together.
And that process thinking flows perfectly into the famous Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle. You'll hear it called PDCA. It's such a simple but powerful loop for getting better. First, you plan what you're going to do, then you just do it. Next, you check your results. Did it work? And finally, you act on what you learned to improve things for the next go-around. Plan, do, check, act. You can use this for a tiny task or for running the entire company. Now, inside that plan step, there's a really critical piece called risk-based thinking. This is all about being proactive instead of reactive. It's about looking down the road and asking, what could go wrong here? And, just as important, what opportunities might pop up?
This quote from the standard really nails it. Risk-based thinking helps you figure out what might throw a wrench in your plans. Once you know the potential problems, you can build in safeguards to soften the blow. But it's a two-sided coin. It also helps you get ready to jump on good opportunities when they show up.
Okay, so we've got our compass, the principles, and our map, the PDCA cycle. So how does the actual rule book, the standard itself, fit together? Well, this is the really clever part. It's not just a random list of requirements. The different sections, or clauses, are organized perfectly around that Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle. Seriously, this chart is like the Rosetta Stone for ISO 9001. Look at how it lines up. The plan part? That's clauses 4 through 7. It covers understanding your business, leadership, planning, and support. The do part? That's clause 8, operation. That's literally the part where you do the work, make the thing, or provide the service. Check is clause 9, evaluating how you did. And act is clause 10, improvement.
See, it just makes sense. It's a perfect logical flow. And just like the whole point is for a business to improve, the standard itself gets better over time. For example, the 2015 version tweaked some of the language to be more modern. What used to be called a supplier is now an external provider. All the different talk about documentation and records got simplified to just documented information. This isn't just playing with words. It's about making the standard easier to apply to any kind of business out there.
So let's say you do all this. You live by the principles, you run the PDCA cycle, you build the whole system. Where do you end up? What's the final destination of this journey?
Well, the payoff is huge, and it's real. The number one benefit, the biggest slice of the pie, is happier customers. Why? Because you're consistently giving them what they need. And that, of course, leads to rock-solid quality in whatever you're selling. That builds trust, which boosts your reputation. And when all those things are working together, your whole business just performs better. It's a chain reaction.
And I have to stress this point because it's so important. Who can use this? The answer is anyone. Absolutely any organization. It doesn't matter if you're a tiny software startup, a giant factory, a city hall, or a charity. The principles, the framework, they work for everybody. It's designed to be universal. So let's zoom out. When you take that strategic decision, you combine it with the guiding principles, and you live that cycle of improvement day in and day out, what have you actually created? What's the real ultimate result?
I absolutely love this phrase. It's actually the tagline from one of the official publications. This whole thing isn't about a one-time project. It's not a quick fix. The true purpose of ISO 9001 is to weave quality so deeply into the fabric of your company that excellence isn't something you have to think about anymore. It's just what you do. It becomes a habit,